Hello, my name is Olivia, and I want to share my journey with you. How I practiced to speak English naturally. I didn't grow up speaking English, and for a long time, I struggled to sound confident and clear. Every time I tried to talk, my mind would freeze, my voice would shake, and I felt embarrassed. But I didn't give up. I found my own way to practice, and I turned it into a daily habit. I still remember the first time I truly tried to speak English. Not just reading a line from a textbook, not repeating something a teacher told me to memorize, but speaking, really speaking, from my heart. It was a quiet night. I was sitting alone on the edge of my bed. The room was dark, except for the small glow of my study lamp. I had just finished watching a short English video on YouTube. A girl was talking about her morning routine in English. Nothing fancy, just a simple vlog. But there was something about the way she spoke, so natural, so confident, even though she wasn't a native speaker. That struck something in me. I thought, if she can do it, maybe I can too. So I looked around. Nobody was home, just me, the silence, and a little bit of courage. I walked to the mirror on my closet door, stood in front of it, and said the first sentence that came to my mind. "Hi, my name is Olivia." It felt strange. My voice was soft, almost like I was afraid the walls might hear me. I said it again, louder this time. "Hi, my name is Olivia. I want to learn how to speak English." That was it. Just one sentence. But something inside me woke up. I began to realize that I had always been waiting for someone to speak English with me, waiting for the perfect moment, waiting to be ready. But that night, I understood something important. I didn't have to wait. I could start now, with what I had, where I was. And that's exactly what I did. I made a promise to myself. I would speak English every single day, even if no one else was around. At first, I didn't know what to say. So I just talked about my day. "Today I went to the market," I would say. "It was crowded. I bought some apples." The apples were sweet. I spoke slowly, and sometimes I forgot words. But I didn't let that stop me. If I didn't know how to say something, I would pause, look it up, repeat it a few times, and keep going. I wasn't trying to be perfect. I was trying to get comfortable. It became my secret ritual. Every morning, I would look in the mirror while brushing my hair and say, "Good morning, Olivia. Today is a beautiful day." Every evening, before bed, I would lie down and whisper to myself what I had done during the day in English. Some days, I would get excited and record voice notes on my phone, just talking about random things. And then I'd listen back. It was hard at first, hearing my own mistakes, my slow rhythm, my weird pauses. But I kept going because I wasn't doing it for anyone else. I was doing it for me. Speaking English alone helped me more than any grammar class I had taken. In school, we focused on writing and reading. We answered questions. We filled in blanks, but we didn't speak, not freely, not naturally. That's what I needed most, and now I had found a way to give it to myself. Alone, I was free to explore the language. I could be silly. I could be wrong. I could start again and again without feeling embarrassed. I began to notice small changes. My tongue started to feel more comfortable with English sounds. Words didn't stick in my throat as much. I wasn't translating in my head as much as before. Sometimes I would even catch myself thinking in English. That was a big moment for me. It felt like my brain was finally letting go of the need to switch between languages. I was beginning to connect directly to English, not just through study, but through practice. And more importantly, I started to feel proud. I was showing up for myself every day, even when I was tired, even when I didn't feel like it, I spoke. It became part of me. Like brushing my teeth or checking my phone, speaking English to myself became part of my life. One evening, I decided to push myself a little further. I set a timer for 5 minutes and told myself, just talk. Don't stop. Don't pause. Say whatever comes to your mind. I talked about the weather, my favorite movie, what I wanted for dinner, and even why I was afraid of speaking English before. When the timer went off, I couldn't believe it. I had spoken for 5 whole minutes without stopping. Yes, I had made mistakes. Yes, some sentences were weird, but I had done it. I had spoken. From that day, I began setting daily challenges for myself. Describe everything you see in English for 10 minutes. Or tell the story of your childhood in English. Or pretend you're giving someone directions to your house. These little games helped me expand my vocabulary, improve my fluency, and gain confidence. I realized that I didn't need anyone else to practice with. Not at first. I could build a strong foundation on my own. I also created a little English corner in my room. Just a small table by the window where I placed a notebook, a mirror, a small speaker, and a sticky note that said, "Speak without fear." That corner became my practice zone. Sometimes I would sit there and pretend I was talking to a friend or giving a speech or answering interview questions. I wasn't acting anymore. I was living in English. And slowly, the fear started to melt away. Speaking English didn't feel like a performance anymore. It felt like a conversation, a way to express myself. I didn't care if it was perfect. I only cared that it was real. But I knew this was just the beginning. I had gained confidence by speaking alone, but life isn't lived in isolation. I wanted to be ready for real conversations, with real people, in real situations. I had practiced in private. Now I needed to prepare for the world outside my room. So I began to imagine it. I started creating little situations in my mind, scenes from everyday life, all in English. What would I say at a coffee shop? How would I introduce myself at a party? What if someone asked me for directions on the street? I wanted to be ready for all of it. That's when I discovered a new kind of practice. One that took all the confidence I built alone and stretched it further. It was time to step into those imaginary conversations and make them feel real. And that, my friend, was the moment everything changed again. Once I built the courage to speak English alone, without fear or pressure, something inside me started to shift. It was like a door had opened, and now I was walking through it into a new kind of practice. Every day, standing in front of the mirror or lying on my bed whispering sentences into the quiet, I realized something powerful. I was no longer afraid of my own voice. But I knew this wasn't enough. Speaking to myself helped me get used to the language, but real life wasn't just talking to a mirror. Real life meant reacting, thinking fast, answering questions, ordering food, asking for help, making friends. That's when I found the next step in my journey, practicing real-life situations, but doing it all inside my imagination. At first, it felt like playing make-believe, like I was acting in a movie that only existed in my mind. But the more I did it, the more real it became. I would close my eyes and picture myself walking into a busy coffee shop in New York. The bell above the door rings as I enter. I smell the fresh espresso in the air. I walk up to the counter. A friendly barista smiles at me and says, "Hi, what can I get started for you?" I take a breath and reply, "Hi, can I get a cappuccino with oat milk, please?" Then she asks, "Would you like it hot or iced?" And I answer, "Hot, please." She says, "Sure, that'll be $5. And I reach into my bag and say, "Here you go. Thank you." I imagine myself finding a seat near the window, opening my notebook, and taking a sip of the warm drink. I even imagine someone sitting next to me, maybe starting a conversation. "Hey, what are you writing?" they ask. And I reply, "Oh, just some thoughts in English. I'm trying to improve my speaking." I played the scene again and again in my mind. Each time I added more details, a different city, a different question, a different reply. I didn't just speak, I lived it. And somehow, my brain started believing it was real. This kind of imaginary role play helped me prepare for situations I had never even experienced yet. When I finally did walk into a real cafe months later during a trip abroad, and the barista asked me the exact same question I had practiced, "What can I get started for you?" I didn't freeze. My words were already ready. It was like muscle memory, but for my tongue and mind. Soon I made this practice a daily habit. Each morning I picked one situation to imagine. Some days I was at the airport checking in for a flight. "Good morning. Can I see your passport, please?" I'd hear in my mind. "Here it is," I'd reply. "Do you have any bags to check?" "Yes, just one." "Any liquids in your carry-on?" "No, just books and clothes." I would walk through the entire conversation like a scene in a movie. Other days, I imagined I was at a doctor's office, explaining my symptoms. "I've been feeling a pain in my chest for 2 days now." The doctor would ask follow-up questions, and I would answer them as naturally as I could. I even practiced going shopping. "Excuse me, how much is this jacket?" Or, "Do you have this in a smaller size?" I practiced going to the bank, the library, the post office, even calling customer service. I turned my imagination into an entire English-speaking universe. What made this method so powerful was that it connected English to me. These were not random textbook examples. These were my stories, my life, my voice, and because it was my life, I cared more. I could feel the words becoming part of my real experiences, even before they actually happened. I remember once creating a scenario where I was invited to a dinner party. I imagined walking in and someone greeting me. "Hi, I'm Sarah. Nice to meet you." And I'd reply, "Hi, Sarah. I'm Olivia. Thanks for having me." We'd sit at a table, and someone would ask me, "So, Olivia, what do you do?" I'd smile and answer, "I'm a student right now, but I also write in my free time." Then the conversation would continue naturally. Someone would say something funny, and I'd laugh and respond. Oh, wow, that's hilarious. This kind of storytelling became so fun that I actually looked forward to practicing. It was like watching a show in my head, except I was the main character, and the script was always in English. But it wasn't just imagination for entertainment. I was building speed. My responses became quicker. I didn't have to pause to think of how to reply, because I had already practiced dozens of ways to say the same thing. Can you help me? Became, would you mind giving me a hand? Or could I ask you a favor? Depending on the scene, I chose different expressions, tones, and attitudes. It gave me flexibility. I learned that speaking English naturally wasn't just about using the right words. It was about choosing words that felt alive in the moment. One of the most helpful scenes I practiced was interviews. I would stand in front of the mirror and pretend I was being interviewed for a job. Tell me about yourself, the interviewer would ask, and I'd begin. Well, my name is Olivia. I'm passionate about learning languages, especially English. I've been practicing for the last few months every single day. The interviewer would nod. Why do you want this job? I'd respond, because I believe it will challenge me and help me grow. Also, I love working with people and solving problems. I practiced interviews over and over, changing the job role, the questions, and my answers. One day, I actually got called for a real interview, and it didn't scare me at all. I had already done it hundreds of times in my mind. This kind of preparation also helped me in casual situations. Once, a tourist approached me in my city and asked, "Excuse me, do you speak English?" And for the first time in my life, I answered without hesitation, "Yes, how can I help you?" That moment made my heart dance. I helped him find a bus stop. We even chatted for a minute about the weather. It was nothing complicated, but for me, it was everything. It was the proof that my imaginary practice was working in real life. The more I practiced this way, the more natural it felt. I wasn't just saying words anymore. I was living English. Even though most of these situations were in my imagination, they trained my brain to respond in real time. And I wasn't just focused on grammar anymore. I paid attention to tone, rhythm, expressions. I would sometimes copy the way native speakers sounded in movies or interviews and add that flavor into my practice. I became more expressive, more human in my English, less robotic, more real. I remember once imagining a difficult conversation, calling a customer support line to complain about a product I ordered. It was tricky. I had to stay calm, be clear, and sound polite but firm. "Hello, I'm calling about an order I received. There seems to be a mistake with the item." Then I imagined the person on the other side asking questions. "Can I have your order number?" "Yes, it's 47,825. "What exactly is the issue?" "Well, I ordered a red jacket in medium, but I received a blue one in large." It might sound like a small thing, but practicing this scene gave me confidence that I could handle complicated conversations too, not just greetings and small talk. Every time I added a new situation to my practice routine, I felt myself grow. My vocabulary grew, my sentence structure improved, and most importantly, my confidence soared. I wasn't just hoping to speak English someday. I was preparing myself for that day, every single day. One evening, after finishing my imaginary day at work scenario, I sat on my bed and smiled to myself. I realized I wasn't nervous anymore when I spoke in English, not even in my mind. And that was the moment I knew I was ready to take it even further. Practicing real-life situations in my imagination had brought me so far. But now, I wanted more. I wanted to live in English, not just for 5 minutes a day, not just in my mind, but all around me. I wanted English to become my environment, something I heard, thought, read, and felt all day long. I didn't want to switch in and out anymore. I wanted to breathe English, live in it, let it surround me like air. And so, my next step became clear. After weeks of practicing real-life situations in my imagination, I could feel a powerful change happening inside me. I had gone from being afraid to speak English at all to confidently acting out full conversations in my mind. I had turned my quiet bedroom into a stage where I could speak freely, confidently, and without hesitation. But deep down, I knew that something was still missing. I could speak in my imagination, and I could talk to myself without fear. But I was still switching between English and my native language in daily life. English wasn't a part of my world yet. It was something I stepped into during practice, and then stepped back out of. That's when I made the biggest decision of my journey. I would surround myself with English completely, even when I was alone. I wanted to make English my environment, not just my practice language. I wanted it to live in my world, in my routines, in my daily thoughts, not just for 1 hour a day, but all day. The idea seemed simple at first. Listen to more English, read more English, think more in English. But living it? That was something else. It meant I had to change how I interacted with the world around me. I started small. I changed my phone's language to English. It was strange at first, seeing settings instead of the word I'd known my whole life, or battery saver instead of something familiar. But slowly, these words began to feel normal. My brain stopped translating. When I opened my phone, I was now entering an English world. Next, I moved to my surroundings. I printed out labels and stuck them around my room. On the lamp, lamp. On the mirror, mirror. On my desk, desk. I even labeled my toothbrush, my mug, my notebook, my chair. It might sound silly, but every time I used one of those objects, I thought of the word in English. It became automatic. My mind didn't need to pause and translate anymore. English words were tied directly to real things, and that made everything click faster. But I wanted to go deeper, so I made a new rule for myself. Every piece of content I consumed had to be in English. That meant my YouTube videos, my music playlists, my podcasts, even the movies I watched before bed. I created a Fluent Olivia playlist filled with English songs, slow ones with clear lyrics so I could sing along. I listened to them while cleaning, walking, or just relaxing. At first, I didn't catch every word, but slowly I started recognizing common expressions, casual phrases, emotions hidden in the lyrics. Music helped me feel English, not just understand it. I also found English vloggers and started watching their daily routines. People talking about their lives, their jobs, their pets, their cooking. These weren't grammar teachers or English tutors. They were just regular people speaking naturally, and that was exactly what I needed. I would watch their videos and repeat their sentences out loud, copying their rhythm and expressions. Sometimes I would pause the video, say the sentence myself, then rewind and play it again to compare. It wasn't studying, it was shadowing life. Podcasts became my new background noise. Whether I was folding laundry, washing dishes, or lying on my bed, I always had one playing. I chose topics I loved: self-growth, travel, simple life tips, so it never felt like homework. I didn't understand every word, but I didn't need to. The point was to hear the rhythm, to let English flow around me until it started to feel like a language I had always known. Then I did something even harder. I started journaling in English. Every night before bed, I wrote one full page in my notebook. It didn't matter what the topic was. Sometimes I wrote about my day, sometimes about my dreams, sometimes about my fears. I let the words come out naturally. I didn't check grammar or spelling. I just let myself write freely. At first, I struggled. I paused a lot. I kept thinking in my own language and trying to translate. But after a few weeks, something shifted. I would pick up my pen, and the thoughts came directly in English. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. I could feel my brain building English pathways, new roads that didn't need translation signs. I also started talking to myself all day long, not just in front of the mirror, but while doing normal tasks. While cooking, okay, now I need to cut the onions. Be careful with the knife. While cleaning, let's start with the table, then move to the floor. While choosing clothes, what should I wear today? Maybe the white shirt. It's comfortable. I treated every moment like a chance to speak. And because I was alone, there was no pressure. I could speak slowly or fast, make mistakes, laugh at myself. It didn't matter. I was creating my own English world. Even outside my house, I stayed in English mode. I would walk through the streets and describe things I saw in my mind. That lady is walking a little dog. The man over there is reading a newspaper. The shop is closing. The sky is turning orange. These weren't sentences from a textbook. They were alive. Tied to the real world. This simple habit changed everything. It trained my brain to think in English, not just speak it when forced. My inner voice began speaking to me in English too. When I was sad, I'd think, "Don't worry, Olivia, you're trying your best." When I was happy, I'd think, "This is beautiful." When I made mistakes, I'd laugh and say, "That's okay. Next time, I'll do better." I didn't need anyone else around to feel like I was practicing. The world itself had become my English classroom. The more I lived in English, the more I understood that fluency wasn't just about words. It was about connection. Connection with sound, with emotion, with context. I started recognizing phrases and idioms in songs and shows. Break a leg. Let's call it a day. I'm under the weather. I used to skip over these expressions. Now, I paused and learned them. I looked them up, wrote them in my notebook, and used them in my next imaginary role play. English stopped being a subject I studied and became a part of who I was. I even changed how I dreamed. I remember the night I had my first dream in English. I woke up amazed. In the dream, I was on a train, talking to a stranger about books. I don't remember all the details, but I remember speaking in English and understanding everything perfectly. It felt like magic, but it wasn't. It was the result of surrounding myself with English day after day, hour after hour. My mind was finally accepting it as normal, familiar, and safe. This change didn't happen overnight. It took effort. It took patience. There were days when I was tired, when I didn't want to journal or talk to myself or watch another video. But I always returned because I knew that each small act was building something bigger, something that couldn't be seen yet, but was growing inside me every day. And I realized something powerful. You don't need to live in an English-speaking country to live in English. You can create your own environment, no matter where you are. You can turn your room, your phone, your music, your inner voice, all into English. And once you do that, your fluency starts to grow like a plant with sunlight. It stretches, expands, and blossoms, slowly but surely. There was a day I'll never forget. I was walking to the grocery store, earbuds in, listening to a podcast about storytelling. I wasn't paying attention to the people around me, just enjoying the voice in my ears. Suddenly, someone tapped me on the shoulder and asked in English, "Do you know where the nearest pharmacy is?" Without even thinking, I replied, "Yeah, there's one just 2 blocks down that way, on the left side, next to the bakery." The words came out so naturally that I surprised even myself. The person smiled, thanked me, and walked away. I stood there for a second, frozen, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I had just spoken English in real life, effortlessly. That's when it hit me. I was no longer practicing. I was living it. And English wasn't just in my notebook or my mirror anymore. It was in me. Looking back now, I can hardly believe where I started. A quiet girl standing in front of a mirror, whispering, "Hi, my name is Olivia," with shaky lips and nervous eyes. That was the beginning. I didn't have a teacher beside me. I didn't have a classroom, a perfect environment, or even someone to practice with. But what I did have was a decision, a simple promise to myself. I will speak English. I will find my own way. I started speaking alone, without fear or rules. I spoke to my reflection, to the walls, to the silence. Then I built a new world in my imagination, full of conversations and real-life situations that prepared me for moments I hadn't even lived yet. And finally, I surrounded myself with English like it was oxygen, listening, reading, thinking, dreaming. I didn't wait for the world to give me an opportunity. I created one, and that changed everything. I didn't learn to speak English naturally by chasing perfection. I learned by practicing connection. Connection with my voice, with real situations, and with the world around me. I allowed myself to be a beginner, to sound strange, to make mistakes, and to keep going anyway. And slowly, those small daily choices became my transformation. Speaking English stopped being something I feared. It became something I loved, something that belonged to me, not because I was perfect, but because I was consistent. I didn't speak English to impress anyone. I spoke to express myself, to grow, to open doors that were once closed to me. And now, I speak English not just with words, but with confidence, with ease, with joy. And if I can do this, just a girl in her room with a dream and no one to talk to, then you can too. You don't need to wait for a perfect environment or a partner or a class. You can start right now with your voice, your imagination, and your daily life. You can build your own path, step by step, word by word, thought by thought. Fluency isn't a finish line, it's a journey. And every sentence you speak, no matter how small, is a victory. So speak, even if your voice shakes, even if no one listens, even if the words feel heavy. Speak anyway, because one day, just like me, you'll look back and smile and realize you didn't just learn a language, you became it.